everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today we've got a brand new speaking test for IELTS. So let's begin. Part 1. Are there a lot of buildings where you live? Yeah, I mean here we practically only have buildings and nothing else, I would say. Houses are actually very rare. You might find them in the outskirts of the city, but yep, it's all buildings and huge buildings. In fact, if I leave my apartment right now and I would just walk for maybe 30 seconds and I'd see tons of buildings around me. So it's like all, and the newer buildings, in fact, they're so like, they're all size skyscrapers. They're all like, they've got like 40, 50, 100 floors, and it's crazy. I would say it's kind of like, I don't like how they look, to be very honest. Like every time you go out, there's these huge things floating above you. It's kind of weird looking. What kind of architecture do you like the most? Well, in terms of architecture, definitely not what I have in my city right now, like around me. But if you go down to the city center, you find a lot of old Victorian Gothic architecture. That is just beautiful. In fact, I don't quote me on this, but I read somewhere on the internet, it was actually an excerpt from a book, and that said Bombay is the world's, I don't know, oldest or something. It's the most Victorian city in the world, which is very cool because I enjoy that kind of architecture. I just love how grand and majestic everything looks. I think in general, any kind of older architecture, whether it's neoclassical, whether it's rococo, I just find that there was a lot of thought put into, older forms of architecture. Like when you look at a modern building, it's all glass and steel and concrete, and it just looks so ugly. Honestly, there's no soul, there's no character, there's no personality. It's just boring to look at, and practically every city around the world nowadays looks almost the same. Look at downtown, you find similar looking buildings. Of course, I mean, there's, laws and stuff like that. In many parts, like in our city center, we have a lot of Art Deco buildings. And so people who live there, they're not allowed to change the colors, not allowed to change, what it looks like on the outside to preserve that, beauty. So I think that's very smart. I think that's very good. But yeah, my favorite would have to be Victorian and then Baroque or Rococo. Where would you live if you could live in any home in the world? Now, I don't know if you mean a city or like a specific type of home in the world, right? But I would love like a chalet or something like that, or maybe like an old Victorian type home. Again, I love, like the arches and the imagery and all of that I find extremely cool. So any place that has a lot of, still remaining, still intact Victorian architecture. Because the thing is that a lot of these old buildings, right, they have a lot of issues. They have insulation problems, or they have mold problems, or their upkeep is a huge pain. Like I'm sure you read about these €1 homes in Italy. But the thing is, though, that they require extensive repairs. And repairing an old building, old home is a huge, it's a mammoth task. It takes a lot of time, a lot of money. And so naturally it makes sense why people prefer modern buildings, right? But yeah, like I said, they just lack soul. And so if there was indeed an older home that was still, in good upkeep, I would definitely like to live someplace like that. Is architecture an important part of a city's identity? Absolutely, 100%. That's how you know, right? Because you've got, for example, you've got these thatched roof homes in England. They're very popular in certain areas. So okay, that's like, oh, that's the English countryside, right? Then you've got these, I forgot what they're called exactly, but you've got these structures in Central Europe. They're made out of wood, but not just wood. There's a specific design to it, right? Or you've got, for example, all the neoclassical structures, right? Or you've got Victorian structures and things like that. So it tells you a lot about the city's history, right? For example, there's also a lot of Saracenic architecture that you would find in the Middle East, right? And so that tells you, okay, what is like, it's immediately recognizable. Like, oh, this is, this city, or it's that city, or it's this country or that country. So Sadly, of course, nowadays, like I said, all new buildings, they more or less look the same. And so it doesn't matter where you are, in which country, in which city, building plants and everything, they're starting to become very homogeneous. So that's a bit sad. Like if you look at a typical, Japanese home, that's they're designed. You've got these sliding doors and you've got these, you got the tatami mats and everything. And from the outside, you just have this I feel like architecture, language, and all of these things, they're so closely tied to culture. And when you ruin, or when you try and modernize or you try to homogenize all these things, I think the cities or, countries or regions, they lose their identity. And that's very sad, personally. Okay, let's look at part two. Describe a successful small business that you know about. You should say what kind of business or company it is, what does this business do, how do you know about this business, and explain why you think this business or company is successful. Now, maybe you don't know a small business is just any business that's like a mom and pop store, right? Or somebody you know that sells candles on Instagram. Any small business. A small business would just be, well, that depends, of course, the exact definitions. You don't really have to worry about them. But as long as they're not like Walmart or something, right? It's a small store, maybe run by one person or two people, or like a family, enterprise or something like that. So small varies, but as long as it's not some huge chain that everybody knows about. And again, like I said, even if you don't really know someone, you can always fake stories. I mean, what is a small business? Oh, maybe somebody who sells handmade bags on Etsy. Like that, maybe, right? So it can be absolutely anything. Don't like worry and think, oh, I don't know anyone who does this. You can always just fake it. That's like the best thing to do. So yeah, I was undergoing teacher training a few years ago. This was maybe in 2015 or 14 or something like that. And at the time, I got to know someone who, of course, she was a teacher as well. But side by side, she had this little candle business. And at that time, I thought, a candle business, that's kind of weird. Because I thought it was just a hobby thing. You have these candles, and okay, but like, you're not going to make a livable income off candles, right? I mean, to me, the idea was always very odd. So, yeah, I, foolishly thought that, that's just a little, hobby thing, can't be a real career. But I was wrong because I had a look at her Instagram and Facebook pages, and my gosh, the amount of work that she puts in. But also, she had like 36 or something thousand followers. And this was like, a while ago. Now it's probably a lot more. But even back then, she was able to, harness content creation and show that, a lot of these candles, they look like soap, and like the way they, form all these things, and they make, like, for example, during Easter, Christmas, and New Year's, and all these, especially during the big festivals and holidays, the demand really, I mean, there's lots of people buying these candles, and so they form them in all these unique shapes. They've got like apple shaped candles and doll shaped candles. I remember that. So when the Barbie movie was really popular, they made Barbie candles as well, and they really got like get a lot of engagement and everything, on their social media profiles. And she actually made that her full time career, so she doesn't teach anymore. She just runs this with her husband, and they're actually surprisingly successful. But I think their success is largely due to content creation, right? Because again, most people who do this kind of thing, they're doing it as a side hustle. So it's not really where their entire income comes from, right? But they really like they make really good video content, and their content regularly goes viral as well. Not like wild, absolutely, but it is very popular. Like they get like 50,000 or 100,000 something views and everything. So, and that's regularly. Some of the reels can even get like 400,000, 500,000 views. So they're really smart with content creation. I think that, of course, makes a lot of sense, because nowadays, if you're running any kind of business, you really need to be able to be the face of that business. You need to be super active. that's how you find, you reach your audience. So that's very smart of them. And I'm glad that worked out. And that definitely showed me that, even though it might sound silly at first, as long as the fundamentals of business are all good, they're actually doing a very good job. Okay, now we'll go on to part three. Okay, what qualities are required to become a company leader, or like our CEO, or maybe a manager? Now, that's a loaded question. It's not, there's so many qualities. I think, first of all, you have to be flexible, you have to be open minded, you have to know that, okay, maybe you have a position of power, but that doesn't mean you know everything. Right? Because times are always changing, knowledge is always changing. So you need to be open to learning, you need to be open to being corrected. You need to also recognize that I am good at certain things, but there are other people who may be much, much better at me than at certain things. Because I think when you become a CEO, manager, etc., your job really is to allocate resources, whether that's time, whether that's capital, whether that's money, but that's your job, right? You have to be able to recognize, for example, opportunities. So you have to be a visionary as well. You have to be able to predict, not really predict, but have to be able to forecast, the short-term future. Like, okay, how many sales are we going to make, in the next 3 months or by the end of the year, etc. So, and that is, these kinds of things are very hard to teach in the traditional sense, like in a school or university. So you have to be someone who can deal with success and failure equally, because there's a lot of failure in the business world, and you cannot be someone that is, easily demotivated, right? Because then, well, that would be very difficult. Nobody can really survive if they, just feel like giving up. Oh, I didn't, achieve success with this one thing or one idea, just did not work out, and you can't let that get to you. In general, what factors do you think determine whether a small company will become successful or not? There's a typo here. The two should not be there. So in general, what factors do you think determine, or what factors do you think can determine or will determine? Next time there won't be any typos. I'll check that out. Sorry about that. So what do you think? What factors are important? So a lot of, most businesses will fail in the first 4 to 5 years. And so for a company to be successful, see, what I find usually is that a lot of people start some kind of business because they're very passionate about what they do. They're very talented, right? They're like, let's say, I'm a talented plumber or electrician or teacher or, repair person or something like that. And I think, okay, let me start my own business. Why should I work for someone else? But the thing is, just because somebody is talented at doing something, right, that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be able to run a business, because running a business is a different set of skills. So any small companies, small businesses, they need to understand that the whole point of a business is profit. And whatever you do, you have to ensure that you keep your costs as low as possible, and you have to ensure that you have a healthy ratio, right? So if your product costs, let's say, $10 and you sell it for $11, you're not going to make it. $15, maybe again, it's very risky. If you're Tesco or if you're Walmart or something, then you can. Then it's not a problem because they've got volume. But a small business usually does not have volume. That's exactly why they're a small business, right? So you need to have good margins. You need to be able to pick a good industry. Like don't like have these silly dreams that, oh, I'm gonna start a cute cafe and I'm gonna, do all these things. Cafes and restaurant businesses, they have such high rates of failure because they have razor thin margins. So either you're loaded and you don't care that you're burning money, you can afford to burn money for a couple years until you become profitable. But most businesses need to understand that the first thing you need to do is profit first. And that's not a negative or a bad thing because that's how you feed your family. So offer a good service because a lot of people don't offer a good service. Understand what your audience needs, understand what your market needs, what your customer needs. That is something that a lot of people don't know. They just assume that I've got the service and I'll sell the service, but no. you need to reach the right person, right? You need to know, can I help this person or can I not help this person? That is also something that is, I would say, it's kind of difficult to learn. You learn by experience, yeah. Do you think the latest technology plays an important role in a company's development? Yeah, if you don't embrace technology, you'll just fail. That's so common. Like if you take the example of Kodak, for example, I think, I don't know if it was in the 80s or 90s or something, but Kodak used to be this giant, right, in cameras and stuff, in film and stuff. And then they saw that I think Sony or somebody else, they were coming out with digital cameras because digital cameras were becoming so popular in the 2000s. But Kodak refused to innovate, and so now, well, nobody knows who Kodak is or what they used to do. So if you don't embrace technology, then you'll end up being trampled by it. We have, for example, ChatGPT and things like that nowadays. I feel like it's being abused, because a lot of people will just have ChatGPT do something instead of them doing something. But it's still a useful tool. It's a tool. The tool is not bad or good. It's a tool. It has no moral qualities. How you use the tool is what is important, right? So are you using the tool in an immoral fashion or in a moral fashion? That's up to you, right? But you do need to be able to use all the tools you can to make your business successful. That is, of course, your job as, the leader or the founder, or even as an employee. So I would say you need to be able to, because, it's actually, it's relatable in a way to how a lot of people thought that computers would take their jobs away, which was, just partially the case. But again, you need people to run the computers, right? So you need to learn the skill. You cannot just say, no, I'm not going to learn. I'm going to do things the old fashioned way. So just like people need to upskill, companies also need to upskill. They need to be able to embrace all of this new technology that's coming out. What do you think of charitable organizations? What do I think about them? I don't think there's anything to think about them. But yeah, I mean, of course, a lot of people think that charitable organizations are a scam or something like that. I don't think so. Some of them can be, like Susan G. Komen's breast cancer initiative was very weird because they were not actually using the money to do any actual research. So that definitely was a bit of a scam. But most organizations, especially small ones, at least the ones that I know and I work with, they're doing a good job because, see, these organizations, they fill the gap in society that governments are not able to fill, right? Or people are not able to fill. Because there's always, it's not possible for any government to be 100% perfect, right? So there's always these gaps in society, and we need help. So that's where they step in, and they do a great job, especially with things like let's say helping the homeless, or helping people who are drug addicted, or helping victims of violence, or helping animals, for example. That's another major thing. So I've had nothing but positive experiences personally so far. But I do know that, you tend to become a bit tired. Like there's this one organization, I won't take their name, but they're very popular here, and they keep running advertisements on YouTube, and everywhere you go, you are hit with like this person whose face has melted off, or they'll tell you a story about how this girl was SA'd, and this 5-year-old, and it's like jarring. Like you get sick and tired. Like it's an attack, because I come to YouTube to relax, and then you're telling me about this horrible violent thing, and you're showing me all these bloody pictures. I don't understand. That really gets on my nerves, and many people find it extremely annoying, to the point that they will never donate to this company, which is, I think that's a bit sad, of course, but I understand, because it's so frustrating. You're really preying on people in that sense. So people have, their boundaries. We want to help, but not if you try and overly manipulate us into it. But thankfully, I've only had positive experiences, so that's what I would say. So yeah, that was it for today. Don't forget to tune in to other videos. We have a huge playlist. There's tons and tons of content, so don't forget to check that out. And of course, if you're still here, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel if you are new here. And you can also share these videos with anybody you know. In case you've got any feedback, just drop a comment down below and I'll get back to you on that. Until then, bye.